Hello, my name is Marie Laveria, and I have the channel at Living a Simple Life. And today I thought I would start to talk about my story, a little bit about why did I create a channel on YouTube and why do I call it Living a Simple Life. And so I'll start with, I have some notes for my time frame, so I'll glance down at my notes ever so often. Um, I got married real young. I was 18 years old, and and I had two children. And through foster care, I had a third child, and now they're all adults and they have their own kids. And it's been a while since I was a mother of a young child. Um, so I have 7 grandkids and 1 on the way, so I'll have a total of 8 pretty soon. So the thing about reasons why we do what we do is, I'll say, life for me, from how I see it, is a process. And we start at one place and we slowly move on to other places. And sometimes we have to back up and go down another path because that path was not the path that we were supposed to continue to go on. And I always think that life is a learning experience. So we might be on the path that we think is not right, but we were supposed to learn something on that path, I believe. So we can just kind of like go back to another path after we learn what we needed to learn. And learning is not always easy. It can be very painful. So I got married at 18 and I had 3 children. And my father died when I was 25, and that was really hard. It was very sudden. And not long after, my husband and I went bankrupt. And that was really hard too. It was right after the funeral. I went through a depression for over a year. And at 30, I decided, oh yeah, I forgot to say I was 25 when my father died. And at 30, I decided to go to college. I had graduated from high school at 18, and I had never gone back to school. So I decided, because a friend of mine kind of encouraged me to go to college. Well, I'm one of those people that, I do a thorough job. So I started at 30 and I ended at 50. I got 4 degrees, and I've used them for good things. Like I got a bachelor's in social work, and then a master's in social work, and then a master's in pastoral ministry from Boston College, and then a doctorate in ministry from Bangor Theological Seminary. And when I was living in New Mexico, I worked in the jail as a chaplain, an interfaith chaplain for all religions. That was quite an experience, and if I hadn't gotten that doctorate, I probably wouldn't have gotten that job. So sometimes, things work out in that way. So at 50, I decided enough school. I traveled to visit my sister in New Mexico, her and her husband, and we went to Sedona and the Grand Canyon. I was there for 2 weeks, and I absolutely had a ball. And it was fun visiting all these different places that I had never been before. Bought a lot of crystal in Sedona and sat on one of those big rocks early in the morning before the sun came out, because after that they're too hot. So anyway, I came back home, but I really didn't want to come back home. I really liked being there. So I got divorced in 2008 after being married for 33 years. And I moved to New Mexico. So when I went to visit, it was several years later that I got divorced, and several years later that I went back to live there for 7 years. 7 seems to be a popular number. So I lived in New Mexico for 7 years. Excuse me. And towards the end of my 7 years, I got married and then got divorced again. So I came back to Maine in May of 2016. And after being back in Maine, when I first got to Maine, I couldn't find housing. I didn't have a job. So I was what you could consider homeless for 6 months, living with family. I lived with three different family members. And then I found a job and I got an apartment. And I lived in that apartment for almost 3 years before I moved into my small cottage here, which have been here for over 3 years. So I opened a private practice a year after I came back to Maine. And I have been doing that kind of work as a licensed clinical social worker ever since. When COVID hit, I had an office, but it was very small and not really circulated here very well. So I came home and I did telehealth, and I continue to do telehealth at home 100%. I work 2 days a week doing mental health with people that have depression and anxiety. So when I had come back to Maine, I had spent a couple years hanging out with my mom. Her and I were good friends. And then 2 years later, she passed away of cancer in 2018. And that's when I met my friend that had this property with my cottage on it. And that's when I met my friend. And a few months later, I moved into one of the cottages. So that's when my experience of living a simple life started. I started with decluttering and minimizing. As I said before, I'm sorry if you heard me already say this, but I got rid of 95% of my possessions to move into this small cottage. And it was not an easy thing to do because some of the stuff was, I was familiar with it. Some of it I never used it, but I had it and I felt comfortable having it. Like my books, for instance. I ended up giving them away, having a yard sale, and just practically, I didn't get much money for my books, but I did feel good that I was giving them to people that would enjoy them. And I got rid of a lot of furniture. One of my daughters was moving into a big house and she didn't have a lot of furniture, so she could use some of my very good furniture that I had just bought a few years before. So it ended up being that my things that I couldn't use helped other people, but it was hard separating from these things. I mean, some people think, well, I'll just declutter and minimize, but when you really get down to holding that thing in your hand and wondering, okay, I've had this for like 30 years, do I want to get rid of this? And the question I always ask myself, and because I moved into a small space, was I have just limited amount of space. I need to really be serious about getting rid of things that I do not need, that I do not use. And that's where my, motivation for getting rid of things happened, because I had a very small space to be moving in. I was moving into a very small space and I knew that I had limited, I could not bring it all with me. So as I did this purging of things and moved into my little cottage and unpacked and put everything in its place, that was enjoyable for me to create my little cozy home. And I brought just what I needed. I didn't have to get rid of anything. I didn't bring more than I could fit in here. I had already planned that out. It took me 3 months to pack in my old place, so it was done very slowly and carefully and stress-free. And my friend helped me move here, and everything was just so smooth and stress-free. And I unpacked, and I started feeling like my life was becoming more simple. I had less space to clean, less things to worry about taking care of. I started deciding that I was going to minimize my calendar and do just the things that really felt good to me, that I felt like I should be doing, and not things that I felt obliged to do, but didn't seem to fit me well. Of course, that doesn't take away our responsibility things, but I didn't have much responsibility at that time because my kids are all grown, and when they ask me for help, I'm there. But I'm just saying, on an average everyday basis, I don't have a lot of appointments to do a lot of things because I like the quiet and the spaces in my life that are opened, that I can breathe and I can reflect. So the process of simplifying my life started with the decluttering and the minimizing. And then after I had been here a while, that's when I wrote the first book, Minimalism for Well-Being. And after I wrote the first book and I started really living my life in a simplified way and a slower, more open calendar, I started examining my thoughts and minimizing the negative thoughts and trying to keep everything in a positive way where life is happy that way. I mean, things come up, of course, that are not always happy, but my dog died. Not the dog that you've seen in the videos, but my white standard poodle, Rumi. He was a therapy dog for my clients. I had him. I was trained with him to be a therapy dog, and he used to come to work with me when I had my office. And you know, he was 6.5 and got sick one day, and brought him to the doctors. And 18 days later, he died of this really aggressive cancer. That was really hard. So those moments are not easy. And I was just about ready to finish writing my second book when he passed away. Finding a journey to authenticity, finding freedom, peace, and joy. And this book really captures, I would say, my what gives me meaning in life. It's kind of like my spiritual perspective. What gives me meaning in life? So I'm trying to look at my notes here. Sorry. With all of the things, all the losses that I've had and the difficulties that average life has, I did attend some counseling for during the year of 2021. It's important for all of us to consider doing that once in a while, just deal with things that we need to deal with so we can move on. So the year 2022 was the year that I finally felt, and this is like this year, that it was important for me to live my life the way I felt like was the right way to live it, and not how other people seem to want me to live my life. So it took me 66 years to get to this understanding. So in September of 2022, I decided to create my channel, Living a Simple Life. And that's my little story about why I came to this place. I was going to write a third book, but I wanted it to be more available to more people. And I mean, some people get stage fright being in front of a camera. I have a little bit of that, but I kind of like it too, so it works for me. And I've had wonderful response from all of you viewers, and thank you so much for your positive comments. And sometimes I had some helpful suggestions, and I appreciate those too. I did order a mic, and I tried to hook it on, and it's not working, so I have to get another one. So if my voice isn't loud enough, I apologize. I am working on a mic, attaining a mic. So I had a learning curve when I started doing this video stuff, because I have never done this before. So I could do the video and I could download it to YouTube, but to actually edit it and add music and add wording and add, other scenes, I'm working on that. I have a couple of videos, not the last one, but the two before that. One has music and the other one has me taking a video of the beach and talking. It was like over talk. So I am just enjoying learning all these things. So I moved into this little cottage a little over 3 years ago, and my life is simple, and I want to share that with the world, because I think that a simple life, for me, it's where I found meaning in life. This for me is my spiritual practice. I can implement other things to help me, reflect on things and on myself and on my life and on situations. But I have found great meaning in living a simple life because I am in the moment. I am in the present moment when I live my life in a simple way. And that's what I want to share on my channel. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.